Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Hi, I am Laura Wick, creator and founder of Body
Happy
Mind. Yeah, happy
Friday.
Friday. This is Michelle Rockwood. She is our heart-centered coaching, I can't even talk, heart-centered sales expert for Team Body Mind. Together, we are the co-creators of Body Mind Sales. But today we have like an extra super yummy, amazing conversation that I honestly think every coach, every holistic practitioner, everybody who is here with a heart-centered mission to serve and support their clients needs to hear. So if you're joining us live, I see you up. I don't know what corner I'm pointing to. I see you up there. Say hello in the comments. Also, just as a heads up, we are streaming this live in a couple places. It doesn't always tell us your name. So could you just say, hey, Nate, this is Name, and I'm joining you from wherever. Before we jump in, today we're talking about objections. And before we jump in, I want to just quickly talk about what body mind living has to do with sales and objections. You've seen, or maybe this is your first time, you've probably seen Michelle and I here the past couple of weeks talking about sales. And I just want to share my mission here with Body Mind Living in this community. Hi, Hader. Nice to have you. Hi, Cariana. So nice to have you. My goal, my intention with Body Mind Living is to amplify holistic healing voices in the world. I believe that we are being called to step up and be leaders. And in order to do that, right, we have to take ownership of our businesses and we have to be able to sell. And really hear me on this, and I'm sure Michelle can say this much more concisely than I can, but I see all the time your embodiment practices, your coaching work, like your heart is so in that. And I have worked with holistic practitioners and coaches for years, and there's always this disconnect between what you do, how you market, and then how you market and sell it. And what we're here to share with you today is actually how body, mind, embodiment practices are the heart of your sales. This is not separate from, they go together. So that is why we're here. Yes, Michelle?
No, very well said. They are not separate from, they go together. So stay with us throughout this call today because we are really going to help you bridge the gap between this amazing life you're living, right? This incredible embodiment practice you have, the way you interact with your clients and other human beings, and the sales conversation, because we want you to, that sales conversation to be as wonderful as the rest of everything you offer and do in life.
Yeah. And one of the things we love to say is sales can be, how do we say this? What if your sales felt like Shavasana?
So think about that for a second. Like think about how you feel. And I'm actually going to get to go to a yoga class for the first time in a long time this weekend. Think about how you feel laying on that mat. It's the end of an amazing practice. You're sweaty, you're exhausted, and you've surrendered. And you feel so at peace and in control of your thoughts, how you respond. You do and say exactly as you feel, right? Like really, really heart-centered and grounded. So think about and take into during this conversation, as you're leading your sales conversations, that's our goal. That's how we want you to feel, is as amazing as you do at the end of a yoga practice. We want to bring yoga off the mat, bring your mindfulness practice into living it, live it to give it, not separate then, not disconnected, not sleazy or slimy or convincing, but as amazing and as beautiful as you are. So let's get to it, Laura.
That's so beautiful. So just harnessing that energy of Shavasana, and thank you for that. I feel like I took the breath I've been waiting for an hour. Just imagine that energy feeling that shavasana, that calm, that Reiki, that mindfulness practice. And then I would love for you to bring to mind objections. I don't have enough money. I need to talk to my partner. Now's not the right time. I'm curious what happens to your body. How many of you feel the like, right? Yeah. And I'm curious, for those of you listening, like, do you feel like you're a deer in headlights when you have this amazing conversation with somebody, you're super connected, and then all of a sudden, you get to that part of the sales conversation, you present the opportunity, and they say, I can't afford it. Like, are you a deer in headlights? Like, how do I respond to this? Does your inner mother bear come out when your client says, my husband says I can't afford this? Michelle, I'm curious if you have a thought on that one, by the way. Like, this is, you're muted, by the way. How many of you feel that way?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Laura. Like, I love how you just like call me out. You're like, I know that one makes you crazy. We could get into.
Have you heard this, by the way? Have you heard this?
My husband says we can't afford it 100%. And I'm sure women say it to men, but oftentimes we're going to throw you men under the bus. And it's so often it's not because they don't love you. It's because they want to keep you safe. They want to keep you right where you are. Yeah. And that's where they know you. And that's where you know you.
Yeah. But like, as your experience, because I remember when you first started doing sales for Body Mind Coaching, this is something that we hear a lot. And I know for you, especially knowing your husband, knowing your relationship, I remember you being like that fierce energy that you have, Michelle, of like, Laura, these amazing women who have these big dreams and goals are on these calls. We have amazing connection. And then they say this. And it was like that mama bear totally came out of you.
Yeah, it did totally come out of me. And I needed to do the work. And so just like when you're learning to be an amazing coach, when you butt up against something in a coaching conversation that pings you in a serious way, like Laura's describing, I was having that mother bear reaction. We want to take a step back and go deeper and do our work. Yeah. So we don't get that objection over and over and over again, right? Like, I was in the beginning because it was something I needed to work through.
Totally. You just reminded something of me that I'm going to talk about in a second. So my last question, and I'm just curious, like, how many of you, this is the big one, how many of you are like bracing for the objection at the end of the sales conversation? Or maybe how many of you, and I lovingly am going to call you up, how many of you are avoiding sales conversations completely because you are scared of the objection? Put a 1 in the comments if that's you. This is the place we're here to call you up, not call you out. How many of you feel this way? Because I have to say, I come from the massage world. When I first learned coaching, they told us, just let your coaching services speak for themselves. I was never taught how to do sales. And there was always this, like, you get to that part of the actually making the invitation and you're like, so do you want to work with me? All right. So if you are feeling any of this, if you're like deer in headlights, if you're that ferocious mama bear of like, why won't you just say yes? Or if you're the person who is bracing for impact or avoiding the sales conversation because of the objections, you are absolutely in the right place. We have an amazing, got some stuff to talk about today. Because Michelle, what is the truth?
The truth is that the moment you get those objections, they're actually buying questions. So think about that for a second. They're a buying question. I'm on the phone. I've spent 30, 45 minutes with you and I want to buy. And so I'm going to ask some questions. So I love objections. I love buying questions. It's getting us closer to coming to an empowered choice. And I also love them so much, Laura, is because this is where I get to show off my coaching skills. As a coach, what the heck are you doing? You're helping your client come to choice over and over and over. Do I quit my job? Do I stay? Do I stay in my marriage? Do I leave? Yeah. Right? Do I take the trip or not? Do I buy the house? How do I, do I continue to feel this way? Right? It's choice, choice, choice. So now this is your very first chance to be able to help put those bumpers around your client so you can walk side by side towards the destination.
Yes, I love this, because so much of coaching is navigating fear and uncertainty and the inner dialogue of what I can and cannot do. So at this moment, when somebody has that buying question, which we hear as objection, right? A lot of times, which happens up until now, up until Body Mind Sales, right? You go off into your fear and it ends up going like this, instead of you coming back to your embodiment and recognize the person is asking a buying question because there's a part of them that is ready to choose something. And this is the place where you get to be a fiercely grounded, loving coach.
When you come back into your embodiment, as Laura is describing, your engaged listening skills kick in and you're able to hear the true question, the true fear, just like you do in those coaching calls, and help them come to choice. Mm-hmm. So they say, I can't afford it. And you say, okay, I'll see you later, right? That doesn't serve them. But if they say, oh gosh, that's a lot of money, you say, you're right. It is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Yeah.
Go on.
And we're kind of getting into, I want to give some practical things that they can do, but you're saying something Perfect. That I think is really important. What we're talking about today is like, this part usually happens at the end of a sales conversation. And this is the part why we are adamant, Michelle and I, and a big reason, like we have always included how to have sales conversations in Body Mind Coaching, because we know that coaches need these skills, right? Just keep in mind that what Michelle just talked about with like the engaged listening and all of that stuff, there's a reason that you want to have a bit of a structure to the sales conversation, which is what we teach, so that when you get to this place where there is a buying question, you have some tools that you can work from. Does that make sense? Like there's a whole other thing that happens.
Yeah, it does.
To navigate the objections.
It does. And I want to point out to everybody that's listening is that think about throughout your training, whatever it is that you do, whether it's Reiki or yoga or coaching or selling copywriting or Facebook ads or anything, you've really practiced overcoming an obstacle in your coaching conversation. But we simply, for whatever reason, these coaching programs are not teaching people how to navigate the most important obstacle that they're going to have, right? These conversations, and you simply don't have the tools on how to respond to somebody when they say, I can't afford it. You just drop the mic and run, And so it's not your fault that you haven't learned or practiced these things, and it's not something you're born knowing.
Yeah. And I'm curious, well, for those of you listening, if you want, put like, what is the most common, like what is either the most common objection that you get, or what is the feared objection that you're like avoiding? Put that in the chat, because the other thing that Michelle said earlier that I wanted to bring back in, that we're not going to talk about this today, I just want to bring it up because it's so important. Objections, buying questions are also an opportunity for your growth, because when somebody says, I can't afford it, we know it ignites your money story. We know it like pulls up all of your gremlins about worthiness and all that stuff. Like there's, one of my biggest beliefs is that your business, and I think the sales conversation is definitely a very specific point. Your business is one of the greatest opportunities for your growth. Right? There's a reason body mind. There's a reason we talk about business with body mind, because the world thinks it's separate. I'm telling you, they go hand in hand. So can we talk a little bit about how to navigate through objections?
Yes, absolutely. So, first off, we need to get embodied. Yeah. And the reason why we need to get embodied or in our body and centered and grounded, like we're literally put both feet on the floor, hands on your heart, take some deep breaths, is because when somebody says, I can't afford it, you're going to have an automatic response that is preconditioned from your years, right, of life experience to go, okay, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to chase. I'm going to tell you the value of all.
Or I'm going to be like, no problem. I'll see you later. Or you're going to bounce.
Yes. Or discount or modify. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you start doing all of these crazy things that don't serve and support your client, which what they actually said, I'm really scared. Is this going to work for me? Mm. And when you are embodied and you take that first step to put both feet on the floor, to be grounded, you can hear what they're actually saying and respond versus going down the path of your automated response from your life experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So come back down. Can you say a little bit? I think you're onto something really amazing. What are people really asking when they have objections?
Can I do this? Will this work for me? I'm scared. What will my spouse think? How do I present this to the world?
I think, is it safe for me to actually have what I want?
Yes. They're asking for permission.
Yeah.
Permission. To dream bigger, to do something different, to not follow the status quo.
Yeah. I love this because what I'm feeling in this is if you just react to the initial objection from your lens, you're not really serving the person. When you get embodied, when you connect to that intuitive, wise part of yourself, you actually hear what is showing up for the person. And that's where you get to be I hear just a really deep level of compassion. To me, just the energy of the question totally changed as you said that.
I remember, Laura, something that you said to me years ago. And, I said, I can't afford that. And you said, how much longer do you want to live where you can't afford X? I was like, oh, shit. And I love that. That's not okay that you can't afford this $500 activation. How much longer do you want to live that way?
Yeah. And so I think that brings me to what I would say the next step is that when you get embodied, you have to be on the second step of this is get embodied. So get embodied and then be on their side, right? If you go into this is why it's worth it and let me prove and let me justify and yada, yada, and simply shift over to I'm your partner in this and I'm going to get a little, I love a compassionate anger sometimes, an energy. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for your greatness. One of the things I always love is I can talk to your heart or I can talk to your fear.
Yeah.
But I'm here to fight for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good description because so often we're speaking into somebody's fear and feeding the beast versus saying, Laura does this beautiful thing in body mind coaching with this triangle, right? And she always, and so what we want to do is we want to literally, we're going to walk side by side with the client. So we take, the obstacle, the challenge, and we set it aside next to us. So literally in your head, as you're on these calls, take it and set it aside for the client. And then what are some ways in which we could navigate that or get towards that or overcome that obstacle? Let's think about this together. Right? Because we've decided, we've already made the first choice that we want to work together. So now let's bust down those obstacles together.
And you bring up, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, this is part of why, in Body Mind Sales, we have this framework because there's so many other pieces and parts that have happened to get to this place to be able to be on their side.
There is a real framework to the enrollment conversation, the sales conversation. So whereas in your coaching conversation, it can kind of bounce around and you can follow the client. But in the enrollment conversation, you really do need to be in command of the call. For example, when you're at the end and you're talking about making a choice to step in, if your client goes back up into story, right, about all the reasons this and that, you need to eliminate that and squash it right now and not allow them to go into story. Whereas in the beginning of the call, that would have been an appropriate place for that. Yeah. And so there really is, although we do not give you a script or anything like that, there is a very specific framework that you do need to stay within to be in service of your client and to help them make a choice.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to the next thing that I would say as far as like body, mind, and navigating objections. So 1, get embodied. 2, be on their side. The third one is release your expectation, right? Release them having to say yes to your program. One thing that I love to say is I am very detached from whether or not we work together, whether or not you say yes to this program. I am unattached to whether or not we work together, but I am deeply attached to you and your highest good.
Yep.
Right. So that's a way that I detach from the outcome, but also be on the same side as somebody. And then from there, right, so release the outcome and come back to choice. I mean, this is the heart of body, mind, sales. It's about choice. It's not about yes. So I think that's the last thing that I hear you saying is like, you come back to yourself, you get on their side, you release the outcome, and then you support the person into coming back to their empowered choice.
Laura, I want to circle back to release the outcome because so often I think we're told this and it's a lot freaking easier to do, right? Easier said than done. Mm-hmm. So, Laura mentioned, how she releases the outcome, and I want to share with you kind of my woo thing about how I release the outcome.
I've never heard this. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little woo woo, but I always think like it's meant to be. And so what am I not seeing in a client? So if, like, for example, if they say no, I go, and they don't end up coming in, there's always some kind of crazy post I see on Facebook or something that makes me go, oh, phew, they didn't enroll. Does that make sense? So I'm trusting the universe, right? And I'm tapping into my woo here. And I'm trusting that their decision is going to be the right one. I'm not trying to control it. Yeah. And so when I can release the outcome and help them come to a choice for themselves in that moment, it's just like, it's all about them. There's this thing over here that can support them, but it's all about them. So yeah, I'm always a little like woo here in that, like what's will be you should be.
Now I want to riff on this because I think when people feel that on the call, we talk a lot in marketing and the bro market, like claim your expert level status, right? What Michelle just did there, she claimed her expert level status. It wasn't this like big, bold, I'm amazing, you should work with me, let me convince you and prove to you all this stuff. She said, look, what will be, will be. I'm here, like I'm going to get embodied, right? I'm going to be on your side. I'm going to release the outcome and help you come to the best choice, embodied choice, highest, best use of you choice, right? That is fully amazing service, love. And I've had people where they feel that. And even if the choice isn't to work or come into any of our programs, what happens is they've referred people. What's happened is they come back 3 months, 6 months later because they had this amazing experience and they say, I get it now, I'm ready, right? Like this is truly how you serve. And if you are avoiding objections, if you're scared of objections, if you're, just like kind of, your stress response is kicking up during objections, you're missing the most powerful moment of the interaction.
This is the most powerful and enjoyable part of a sales call for me. And the moment, and I've done 400 of these, right? Like we've grown body mind coaching.
A little bit more, but go ahead.
You're totally right. What did you look up the stats? I have done a little bit more.
I don't look up stats. Let's just be honest with that.
And we've grown, body mind coaching 800% in 2 years, you guys, based off of an embodied kick-ass sales conversation and fiercely aligned offers.
Yeah. Can I say something to that too? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, and the thing is, I want to invite you like this, and of all of the 45 minutes I spent with somebody, that last 5 or 10 minutes where we're going through those buying objections are the best part, because I know right away when they say, oh, I have something at that time, that's a yes. Right. So some of these things where you're like, you hang up the phone, I pick it up, I pick up another one, and I take that activation, because I know from my experience that this is I'm scared, and I'm getting into the nitty gritty so much that I'm ready to take that step, And so once you start getting those objections, invite them in, right? And in fact, I even teach you in Body Mind Sales to leave some holes. Don't do too good of a job in that sales conversation, because you want to invite conversation at the end. Sorry, I'm done. Go for it.
That was freaking brilliant. And I love, just again, this is like the embodiment piece. Like, you have your Reiki and you have your yoga and you have your mindfulness and meditation practices and all that stuff. And this is, it is so relevant in this moment. It is deeply of service to have embodiment at the heart of your sales. And I want to go back to what Michelle said, because she has been kind of my behind the scenes secret weapon of growing body mind coaching and growing that program. And yes, we went, I think I was doing like multiple 6 figures, and we went over 7. You said 800% growth in like a handful of years. Like, it's been ridiculous. And I also want to say something here, because for those of you who are like, well, that's great, Laura, you have blah, 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 blah. That was with fewer than 80 clients. In my massage practice, I used to see 80 to 100 clients a month, and I busted my ass to barely hit 6 figures. So I'm going to loop around to something that we said a couple weeks ago in a live. Sales is essential for your business. We sit here, we're going to be sharing shortly about like how we sell in less than 45 minutes. For those of you who are like, I don't have 45 minutes to sell my programs, I'm going to just tell you, if you don't not have the space for this. This
Right.
is the thing that if you want to really, have your premium programs out there, leverage your time, reach the next level, the sales conversation is the thing. And I see so many people think that if I have enough pretty memes on social media, and if I put enough posts into my stories, that somehow I'm going to have to avoid actually inviting people to work with me. Like, this is the thing that will transform your business.
Absolutely. And for our clients, what's neat is they get this from the beginning in body mind coaching, right? Mm-hmm. So they get sales woven into the conversation. So within weeks of working with us, some sell their programs right at the beginning, some sell their programs right at the middle, right? And some at the end, and some right after, right? But everybody knows that the sales conversation and their coaching conversation are this beautiful blend of how they live, how they work, and they're practice it and empowered from the very start. Conversations, face-to-face, that intimate connection cannot be skipped. It is not a shortcut. It's a long cut to go do marketing, to go buy those Facebook ads. That is a long and painful road right back here to the beginning.
Yep. I love this. Any final thoughts, words? Do you want me to apparently I'm the queen of recaps, because that's been happening all morning.
You are the queen of recaps, Laura. And I want you to recap, what we've talked about today. And I also want to invite everybody to go to Body Mind Sales. Laura and I put together an incredible training for you that's very short and concise. We could get a little long-winded on these calls, but but this training is really specific and actionable. And so if you're enjoying this conversation, if you're enjoying learning about how, right, your Shavasana is going to help your sales, go to Body Mind Sales and jump on this training and share with us what you've learned. My coach watched it 3 times and implemented everything. And she's been sharing it with others. So I want you to do the same.
Yeah, it's amazing. And also we have a special announcement coming up next week. So you'll be the first to know as well when that
if you sign up for that list.
Yep. So I will recap. There's so much that I want to recap. And again, I'm curious, as you guys are listening, I would love to know what was your biggest takeaway, even if you're watching the replay, what landed for you in this? You know, I'm a big believer that what is meant for you will never miss. So what in this was for you? So put that in the comments. Let us know, even if you're listening to the replay. And then to recap again, remember that you are here to serve. You are here to be a leader. You are here to step up with your embodiment practices, coaching, whatever it is that you do. Sales is not separate from your work. Sales is actually the activator of your work. And you need specific skills to really navigate that conversation. But today specifically, we talked about objections and how objections are one of the best parts of the whole conversation. So if you have been avoiding them, if you felt overwhelmed by them, if you feel like, I don't even want to get on the call because I'm scared that somebody's going to say 1, 2, 3, I hope that you heard from this today, like just shifting the mindset of like, the objection is not a block. The objection is an opening for a really powerful conversation. Like that intention often changes it. And then when you have those buying questions, because as Michelle said, objections are buying questions. It actually means somebody is ready. They want it. That is what they are signaling. They're just scared. They feel like, who am I to do this? Is it safe for me to have this? Will I be supported in this? That is really what is happening underneath it. Is that correct?
Beautiful.
I feel like I'm doing a good job of my
You
summary.
are.
I'm really proud of myself right now. And then navigating it. So bringing in some body mind into the objections and navigating objections. 1, you got to get embodied. Objections often are one of the most amazing opportunities for you in your healing. Right? We won't go into that now. We do a lot of that in our programs, but objections are a place for your healing. Your embodiment is where you want to start from. Then you want to get on their side. And actually, partially now, I think steps 2 and 3 kind of go together. You want to be on their side and release the expectations, release any attachment to a specific outcome. Because the last thing is, you're there to help the person make a choice, an embodied, empowered choice, right? And when you are on their side, releasing what that choice has to be, they will feel so served, so loved, so nurtured, whether or not they work with you in that moment or not. And that is really where your entire business will shift. It's where sales is really love.
Wonderful. Get out there and have some fun.
All right, everybody. And I think we're back next Friday too with some more love. So join us then. And also go get that free little mini course. Bodymindsales.com is where it's at. And be the first to know of our special little exciting thing that's coming up. We'll be announcing it next week. All right. Have a good one.